Yeah, well, suppose I was lucky enough, the fact that I was out in the field. I was working for the BBC that day and I happened to be on the sideline. I mean, all fathers would do the exact same thing. I think the big emotion thing was that the fact that fathers and sons, normally fathers don't show that emotion. Mothers always show it, but fathers don't, and a lot of fathers can relate to what happened, and just the way it happened, the match. I mean, I was probably more nervous than he was the whole day, the build up to the game and everything else. I was doing a thing for the Ulster Bank that morning and I rang him, and it was the first time that, suppose at the time I rang him, that I realised he was on his own now, you know, and it's emotional enough to do that when he was on the bus on the way in, and he's still only 22 years of age, suppose, and sometimes your father, you like to be there to protect them all the time as fathers, and that's there. And then the day before we called over just to see my dad's grave, and the two of us were there on our own. When I rang him on the mobile phone that day, we were all on our own, and then it ended up in Croke Park, yeah, we're there, and everybody was round us and everything else. There were a big crowd there. I didn't expect so many cameras to be on it and everything else, so listen, it was a genuine moment that happened, and my wife always says that that's the longest time I've ever held him, so she has her own say in the whole thing. But listen, it's a great moment and something we'll cherish as a family. I write for the Daily Star, I do work for RT and BBC and that there, and being a pundit, you know, it was all right when you hadn't a son playing. Now, I had a decision to make then when the son came along was, look, I wasn't going to I couldn't afford to affect him. It was important that he was allowed a space that I got myself, that I had myself and everything else. So the first year was tough. It was tough for him as a player and tough for me as a pundit. But after that then it all settled down. And I mean, one thing with me is I'll criticise him the same as everybody else. Maybe sometimes over the top more than that there. But I think it sorted itself out. You know, the first year was always the most difficult. The second year wasn't as bad. Now, to get to an All-Ireland final was a wee bit different. The fact that he was playing an All-Ireland final and all that there. But listen, it's not easy. Like, we know in the past, you know, sons of so-called famous fathers, you know, it does happen that they get sick and everything else and pick up sick. It's not easy for them because suppose, you know, you'd say that he was always, everybody asking him, you know, will you be as good as your father and all that there. A wee bit unfair, but people don't really mean that there. That's what they talk about and everything else. But he's established himself now, and suppose at the start, maybe 2 years ago, he was Martin McHugh's son. Now I'm his dad, which is great for him, and he can move on and do his own thing. So listen, it's not easy. Is it a help? It's definitely not a help. It's probably a hindrance, and most people will tell you that is a hindrance and everything else. But listen, in fairness to him, he's coped well with it. Well, James manages him at the club, so he gives him plenty of advice. I suppose what I do, I talk to him, and in fairness to him, I always remember a story way back when Jim McGuinness taken over the team, and I was trying to give him advice and talking to him, and he says, Daddy, I'll listen to Jim McGuinness. That's the man I'm listening to. And I said, that's fair enough. So he's listening to Jim McGuinness and Rory Gallagher more so than he's listening to me. I'd ring him in the morning of the match and wish him well. That's what I do really. And that morning, I always give him that call in the morning just to wish him well and everything else, to say hopefully it goes well for him and everything else. Because listen, then, it was only a game of football. We sometimes do put it higher, but you know, that's all I would do with him. Donegal Tyrone's the big one. I mean, they're already saying, will we get the game in Ballyfair or not? Will we be able to play in Ballyfair? Will it go to Clonus and everything else? It's just interesting coming up in the car. Mark said to me coming up in the car that he's never been beaten in Clonus. So I said, not a bad omen that there. You know, the younger lads in Donegal probably have never been beaten in Clonus. They have a good record in Clonus. So listen, wherever it goes, if it goes to Croke Park, Clonus, whatever, it's going to be a big game. You know, post the back door takes away a wee bit from that there. That's the stand game. I mean, Kerry and Cork are going to end up in a semi-final and everything else. I just feel I think it's time to look at the Champions League system, because it's not a fair system. The whole thing's not a fair system, from my opinion. I think that will definitely look at that down the road. I know provinces like to keep that there, but I just think it's time that we moved on now. The fact the back door came in, and now we need to move on to another level. I think we could have another level, we could have more games, we could have more people covering it, and we could tie it up with the league and everything else. So I just think that looking forward, it's great looking forward, but I mean, the great ring is Donegal are Ireland champions. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, and we're going to enjoy it because it's great to say that there. You know, we're very modest and nice people tell us that there, but it's nice to have all Ireland champions behind our name.